This is going to be an extremely important video to watch all the way through. I have to give a lot of context and lead up to why a silver ban would happen, how it's happened before, because it has, and leading up to what it would look like in today's day and age. The Comex vaults are emptied, coin and bars on allocation as ravenous demand for physical silver continues. So the million-dollar question is, could silver get banned again, and what would it look like? Well, Patrick Heller explains what it could look like perfectly. It's also possible that a commodity market could get so out of order with insufficient metal to deliver against demands for physical delivery, as demonstrated by the nickel commodity market over the past few weeks, that the entire commodity exchange for that commodity could freeze or even collapse. Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you so much for being here. This is Silver Slayer. The possibility of silver getting banned on the Comex is a lot more likely than I think people realize. It's happened before, and the reason it's happened before is almost identical to the situation which would make it happen today. What am I talking about? Back in the day, the Hunt brothers pushed the price of silver up to $50 by cornering the market. The government wasn't going to let that fly since they owned up to 77% of the total world supply of silver at the time, so they banned silver on the Comex. They made a law on the spot banning silver. You could not buy silver on the Comex. You had to sell it, and you had to sell it to the government because they needed that silver. Well, what's happening today? Silver demand is through the roof, Comex vaults are emptied, and we're seeing demand like never before. Plus, given the fact the Perthman is talking about skyrocketing demand, and then on top of all that, SD Bullion posted a video last week showing an entire warehouse filled with monster boxes of eagles, all sold. Not only that, a lady from Texas, a billionaire, purchased 900,000 eagles, a $50 million order, and she says she's going to be placing billions of dollars of orders into silver. And by the way, the title of that SD Bullion video was Billionaires Becoming Bullionaires, and that's a perfect example of the extent of money getting thrown into the silver market when there's just not enough. Do you really think that if this lady starts buying billions of dollars of silver, she'll be able to accumulate all that? She bought 900,000 eagles, and that's going to be a hard enough time trying to accumulate. But imagine billions of dollars. And if you want some more context of how crazy the markets are right now, look at this. Perth Mint's general manager of minted products, Neil Vance, says its silver coin bars have been on allocation since April of 2020 and still are on allocation to our distributors today. We've been selling every single physical silver coin and bar we can make over 2 years now. It's been an incredible surge in demand. Same with Miles Franklin. You know, the lady placed the order with them. She wanted 900,000 eagles. Andy Sheckman said he had 90,000, took every single one off the market, 90,000. Now he has to find nearly 800,000 more silver eagles, calling dealer after dealer. Imagine that on a scale times 10, times 100. That's what we're looking at in the coming years. Do you think that's possible? Well, the outcome would be this. This is what it would look like for the Comex to collapse. I'm so glad that I remembered that this guy mentions the possibility of it happening. So to give a little context to this article, this is the situation with the U.S. Mint, their legal trouble going up against Congress because they are non-compliant with demand. They cannot come up with enough silver to produce eagles, and that's because they have to pay a certain price that other mints don't have to. They have certain laws. Well, this guy goes into the whole situation and talks about how the U.S. Mint could get out of this situation since the U.S. Mint gets most of its silver from the Sunshine Mint. I'm not going to go into this because I've made a couple different videos talking about it, but this is the most important part. When he gives the option of what the U.S. Mint could do or why it's actually going to be harder. In addition to there being difficulties of the U.S. Mint obtaining sufficient silver eagle dollar planches from their suppliers, there is also difficulty of actually obtaining physical silver upon maturity of commodity contracts. And now he goes into the Comex. Listen to how he explains this entire breakdown and apply this message, this information, to what's happening today. Let's go. The New York Comex allows mature contracts called for delivery of the underlying physical commodity to be settled by one of four different options. 1. Delivery of the physical commodity. 2. Cash payment instead of the commodity. 3. Shares of an exchange-traded fund, or ETF, for the equivalent quantity of the commodity. Or 4. Exchange for the physical. Exchange for the physical means that the party requesting delivery of the commodity instead receives some cash plus a contract for the same number of ounces of the commodity in the London market. The last of these used to be considered an option only to be used in an emergency since it was the most expensive way to settle a contract. However, it appears that most settlements in the silver market over the past several years have been by exchange for physical. In other words, those hoping to obtain physical silver at spot by purchasing a commodity contract and holding it to maturity either will never get the physical metal or only receive it much longer in the future than the maturity date of the original contract. That sounds familiar. Didn't Perth Mint just say that it's taking up to 2 years for these guys to get the silver? Allocation since April 2020, and people are still, the distributors are still not getting them 2 years later. That sounds familiar. It is also possible that a commodity market could get so out of order with insufficient metal to deliver against demands for physical delivery, as demonstrated by the nickel commodity market over the past few weeks, which you saw what happened to that the entire commodity exchange for that commodity could freeze or collapse. With the information in last week's column and provided here, which last week he talked about the legal problems, all the regulations they're up against, he says you now have a better understanding of the difficulty for the U.S. Mint to acquire sufficient silver to meet public demand for its products. So this explains a lot. One, the first point is it's already happening. He even said this is going to get worse, and eventually people are going to, it's going to take a lot longer for these people to get these contracts, if ever. And then he said the next step after that would be the market actually falling apart since it gets so out of order with insufficient metal to deliver against demands for physical delivery. Well, we know that vaults are empty. We know that people are already taking allocations 2 years out, allocations since 2020, and are still on allocation to our distributors today, right? They're still on allocation to those distributors today. And that's since April 2020. They've been selling every single physical silver coin and bar we can make over 2 years now. So it's looking like the Comex could be repeating what happened back in 1980 with the Hunt brothers. The Hunt brothers, three billionaires, dumping massive amounts of money into silver. And by the way, that was on the Comex. And guess what the brothers did? They turned those contracts on the Comex into physical. They turned all those contracts into physical. In other words, those hoping to obtain physical at spot by purchasing commodity contracts and holding it to maturity either will never get the physical metal or only receive it much longer in the future than the maturity date of the original contract. It is also possible that a commodity market could get so out of order, which is where it's heading, that the entire commodity exchange for that commodity could freeze or collapse. Now, that happened in 1980. Silver Rule 7 was the law that the government made on the spot. Because if these three guys, these three brothers, owned most of the silver in the world and turned it into physical, so they own all this silver, which even back in 1980, we were advanced technologically enough where we still needed silver. It's not like they could just go on with only three people owning all the silver. That wasn't going to fly, and that shouldn't have flied, to be honest. I mean, imagine nowadays, let's say this lady, she owns all the silver and we can't make EVs anymore, or or none of us could get it, or yada yada yada. The whole point is that the Comex would collapse first. We're talking about beyond just the investment sector, but the industrial sector. The silver shortage goes far, far beyond just investment demand. We exceeded 1.12 billion ounces this year. Imagine how many billions of ounces of demand we'll need by the year 2030. Even 2025. Double, triple, quadruple. And we're already seeing this happen. I don't think this situation is given enough attention, and that's why I try to bring and make videos like this, because a lot of people think that this stuff is just a myth, that it's just people over exaggerating. This is not an over exaggeration, folks. It's happened before, nearly 40 years ago. And that was the highest price silver's ever been till this day. They pushed the price of silver up to $50. The government banned silver and shot the price back down to what, $8 or $9. And then that led to Silver Thursday. Silver Rule 7 was the law they passed to ban silver. And then a couple months later, that led to Silver Thursday, where the price crashed over 50% in one day, which was on a Thursday, hence the name. So if it happened before, for reasons just as, in today's time, actually much more severe than back then, why is that not likely? And I think it's actually more likely today since the stakes are much higher. We're talking about the Green New Deal, trying to save the planet, zero net emissions by the year 2040, they say. Right? We're trying to cure global warming and climate change and, yada yada. Well, silver is the most important piece to that puzzle to fix that problem. But that's a puzzle piece that doesn't fit in the puzzle. You could try to squeeze it in there, but it's not going to work. The puzzle isn't going to look perfect, and it's far from perfect when you look at the numbers, and you also look at the possibility of this happening, given that some of it is already happening. Some of it is already happening. Imagine getting denied your request for physical delivery. Imagine you could only sell silver on the Comex and you had to sell it back to the government. You couldn't sell it to friends. You had to sell it. And then, given that, everyone panic sells, which crashes the price, which is exactly what happened with the Hunt Brothers situation. Nowadays, remember the SD Bullion video, billionaires becoming billionaires. Billionaires throwing money in, the lady billionaire talking about it, Jim Rogers, another billionaire. I made a video about, there's actually another billionaire that I mentioned is getting back into precious metals as well. Who was that? Jim Rogers was one of them, and man, who was that? I covered a video a couple months ago of another billionaire. His name's on the tip of my tongue. Hey, it's Silver Slayer from the future. As I was editing this video down, I did remember who the other billionaire was, which is Warren Buffett. Just wanted to add that in there for you all. More people are piling into the silver market, and silver is a much, much, much smaller market than gold. That's why it's more volatile. So billionaires pouring their money into silver easily affects the price. How do you think JP Morgan can manipulate the price of silver so easily? Yeah, it's a big bank, but still, when you talk about several billionaires plus all of us all trying to get a slice of the silver pie and then incorporate the industrial sector, that's a lot of silver for a small market that will move the price. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. That's investing 101. So is this all just exaggerated and we're all just speculating and we don't know what we're talking about? I think the people saying that are the ones that actually don't know what they're talking about. And the ones that are saying that don't actually watch the channels that show the research, that go over the possibilities, that show the numbers, that go over the information, applying it to the past, looking at it from the future, and seeing what the most likely outcome is. I'm not saying that they will ban silver, but I'm saying that it is much more possible than I think a lot of people realize. And even if they don't ban it, the Comex could collapse. I mean, this is so possible. And when you read this, it's like he's explaining what's already happening in front of our face. Listen, I'll say it again. He says, in other words, those hoping to obtain physical silver at spot by purchasing a commodity contract and holding it to maturity either will never get the physical metal or only receive it much longer in the future than the maturity date of the original contract. Remember what that Persman article said, right? Remember what they said. April 2020, still on allocation to our distributors today. Much longer in the future than the maturity date of that original contract. It is also possible that a commodity market could get so out of order with insufficient metal to deliver against demands for physical delivery, as demonstrated by the nickel commodity market over the past few weeks, that the entire commodity exchange for that commodity could freeze or collapse. I mean, he's basically explaining what's happening right now. This is highly likely. Will it happen? For sure, no. But when you look at how Comex vaults are emptied and looking at the numbers and what everyone's coming out and saying, from Perth Mint to the Royal Mint to the US Mint to all of this, it only makes sense. I'm not trying to say it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's much more likely than I think people are realizing. So what is your take on all this? I'm going to wrap this video up here. I really hope you stuck around through the whole video. It hurts to hear, to even know that people are going to click off within the first 2 minutes, missing so much important information. And it's those people that click off within the first 2 minutes that are going to comment down below and say something that I'm saying in the video, acting like I don't know it or that I didn't cover it. That's what bugs me the most, is the people that just look at the title and the thumbnail, they click on the video, listen to the intro, and they'll comment, acting like I don't know what I'm talking about, but they end up in return looking silly because it's exactly what I'm talking about. They just assume. You, my friend, stuck through the entire video, wanted to soak up every inch of information, which is important information, especially since the second half of the video is where the most important stuff was. So that's going to reflect back into your success, into stacking, because you're open-minded. You're not, you're not letting your ego get ahead of yourself. You're understanding that knowledge is power, and you're getting everything you need humbly and open-mindedly, and that will pay off. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. If you don't know, my 15-ounce Silver Slayer Deluxe Bundle Kit will be live next week. I handpicked 15 ounces of silver for my own little bundle, and it's going to be a really cool opportunity for you guys to get some silver that I like at a pretty good deal. I didn't pick any crazy high premium coins, just a lot of different stuff that I personally buy myself. So yeah, stick around. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to ask you to subscribe now. I didn't ask you to subscribe in the beginning. I didn't ask you to like the video in the beginning because you didn't even know if you liked the video yet. Why would I ask you to like a video you haven't even watched yet? Why would I ask you to subscribe to my channel if you don't even know if you want to subscribe to my channel? Well, now I'm giving you that opportunity. If you would like to, I post daily videos. I cover this type of stuff every single day, 2-3 videos a day, always keeping you in the loop. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.